All right. Seems that most of you have joined already, so I think we can start. Hello, and welcome to our East African webinar series. My name is Tõnis Pe, and I am project manager in Enterprise Estonia. Today is our first stop of planned 3 webinars, and we will start with Uganda. But before we go there, I would like to give a word to my colleague, Marge, who will tell us a bit why Africa could be interesting for Estonian companies. So, Marge.
Hello, thank you, Tõnis. Yes, my name is Marge Pihlapuu. I'm the head of international sales team at Enterprise Estonia. So welcome to our webinar. And I am very, very happy to open this series today, which are focused on East Africa. And this is a new path for us as well. So you might wonder, why Africa? There are several reasons for that. Africa is a huge neighboring continent that is developing very quickly. Most of the African countries have already gained political and social stability. It's a young continent with a demographic explosion, and there is a dire need for everything, for goods, for services, for education. And if we talk about the fastest growing economies in the world, 6 out of 10 are in Africa. So we can talk about Africa as a future of Europe. At the same time, of course, there is a number of challenges. Millions of people living below their poverty line. There are consequences of climate change and pollution. These are the areas where we can also help. European Commission has put Africa as one of its top priorities. And one of the focus areas there is a digital transformation. My message today is that you don't have to go to Africa alone. There will be help. There will be a lot of activities, trade missions helped by local experts on the EU level, on the Estonian level, and not only for the IT companies. We will share this information with you through our channels as soon as they come up. But let's get started and let's get better understanding of African countries. Today we'll talk about Uganda, which is a very, very lovely and very friendly country. And of course, there's lots of opportunities. So yes, I'm giving the word back to Tõnis and wishing you a very productive webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Marge. Thank you for the introduction. And now I would like to give the floor, or actually screen, to our guests from Stepchange Africa. But before that, I will encourage you to ask actively questions during the webinar in our Q&A section, so we can have more interaction during this webinar. But now, without further ado, Dr. Andrew Ssemwanga, if you are ready, then the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tõnis and Marge, for the opportunity that you've given Stepchange Africa to fully participate in this webinar. I am Andrew Ssemwanga. I am one of the managing partners in Stepchange Africa, which we are going to talk more in the next few minutes. I will also say more about myself in the next few minutes. I will have 2 other presenters. One of them is Mr. Amin Ismail is one of the managing partners in Stepchange Africa. Another person is going to be the guest, Miss Tracy Kakongi, is going to take you through the regulatory system in Uganda. Now, the purpose of this webinar is to acquaint you with what Uganda is, where Uganda is and what kind of opportunities you can explore when you decide to do so. And also in this webinar, we are going to let you know what kind of assistance you can get and where you can get it from. Without wasting more time, let me move on to the next slide. I want to introduce to you the agenda for today. The agenda for today is having a number of items, but I'll briefly summarize them. First of all, this webinar is being co-hosted by two parties, Enterprise Estonia and Stepchange Africa. And we are very grateful to Enterprise Estonia for allowing us to participate in this webinar. We are very, very, very much excited about this seminar, and we are going to provide you with useful information about Uganda, what you can do in Uganda in terms of opportunities, and what kind of assistance you can get and from where you can get it from. I should also provide you at the end of the webinar, we shall provide you with very useful contacts of authorities in Uganda, contacts of consulting companies like Stepchange Africa, contacts of regulators, and so on, so that you are in a good position to move forward. It is also very important to know that you have a chance to ask questions where you feel, and we shall endeavor to answer the questions. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say more about myself. I am Ssemwanga. I was born and bred in Uganda, and it's my country. I've been working for over 37 years in both private and public institutions, the companies. I've worked with clearing agents, clearing and forwarding company. I've worked with hotel and catering company. I've worked with agricultural company and insurance. Last but not least, with higher institutions of higher learning, universities. And I've been a top manager in all those various sectors. I've also made a lot of consultancies on behalf of the World Bank, USAID, GIZ, Association of African University, European University Association, Vanuatu, a small island Pacific country, and a number of other bodies. I've worked in a number of countries, in neighboring countries like Rwanda, as far as Nigeria, Ethiopia, South Sudan. And my areas of expertise and the skills and knowledge lie in corporate governance, art and science of governing companies. I'm also an expert in finance, accounting, and institutional evaluation. Briefly, that's about me. My co-presenter, Mr. Amin Ismail, is an expert in areas of corporate finance, fundraising, trading, exports, and has got a wide knowledge in the banking sector. And he will talk more about himself. All of us come from Stepchange Africa, which we represent here. Stepchange Africa is a consulting company that was established some months ago in 2020 with a view to assisting companies. These might be startups, SMEs, or big parastatals that are operating or investing or expanding in Africa. How do we assist them? Stepchange Africa is involved in 8 sectors. And these are digital tech, agriculture, manufacturing, health, logistics and the mobility, tourism, education, and green tech. So these are major focus areas or sectors. And what do we do? What are our services? Our services are basically in four groups. We provide assistance in trade and export. So companies may be interested in exporting to Africa or Uganda or exporting to Europe. So we assist them. We also fundraise for companies that need money. And also we match them with partners. These might be equity partners or debt partners. We also provide some other assistance in the form of technical support, like logistics, like corporate governance, accounting, finance, and so on. Last but not least, we have also set up what we call virtual C-suites, where we can provide support in the form of interim management. One of us might become a chief finance officer where a company needs assistance. One of us might become a chief operations officer where there is a need in a given company. One of us might become the chief executive officer on an interim basis. So that's part of our activities. Let me continue with more about, let me talk about Uganda, and then we know more about Uganda. Uganda, as you may know by now, is not a big country, but a small country situated in East Africa. It's a landlocked country surrounded by South Sudan in the north. In the east, we have Kenya, which is going to appear in one of our webinars. Then on the western side, we have Congo, and then on the southern side we have Tanzania, and then Rwanda. So we are surrounded by these countries. But it's a beautiful country, as Marge has indicated, very beautiful, and welcomes people who come to visit, to invest, to do business. The population is now around 38, but it will go to 47 in the next few years. The official language is English. And I'm happy to say that there is a very high level of comprehension compared in what is happening in other parts of Africa. So the level of understanding English is very high, and investors won't find problems in communicating with the natives, with the Ugandans, because they speak English very well and they understand it. Kampala is our capital city, where most of the businesses take place. Business start from Kampala and they end in Kampala. However, there are other cities like Mbale, Masaka, ginger, kitungum, lira, and so on. So all these contribute to the economy of the country. Our currency is the Uganda shilling, and it's convertible to all currencies, euros, dollars, and so on. So it's easily convertible. Now, what is very interesting about Uganda is the population in terms of the youth. They form about 77% of the total population. Now, what does this mean? It means that investors, people who want to do business, will easily get very good labor. Labor that is willing to learn, because these are young people. They can easily learn new things, IT, and they're very energetic. So I think that's a very, very good advantage to people who plan to do business in Uganda. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you through some of the key performance indicators. The GDP, as you can see, is 36 billion US dollars. That was last year. But I'm pleased to say that this growth is increasing. And we anticipate that it will increase by 4.9%. During the past 5 years, Uganda has been enjoying a GDP rate of 6%. The percentage we see here has come as a result of the pandemic due to COVID-19 pandemic. Otherwise, for the last 5 years, the average rate has been 6+%. And we hope it will go to its original figure as things improve, as vaccines, since now vaccine is already in the market. We hope the economy will move forward. And I'm also pleased to say that the GDP per capita, though now less than 1,000, but there is a genuine move towards getting a middle income economy by the year 2030. So this is very good news. All steps are being taken to move the country towards the middle income status by 2030. That would mean a person at least earn $1,000. It's also very interesting that the inflation rate is 4.1, which is a single digit. Unlike other countries in the world. And this is very good. And we see it going down now that the agricultural production, because of the rains, is going up. And the economy, manufacturing sector is also coming back on its feet after the pandemic, though the pandemic is there, but it's now returning to normality. So the inflation rate is likely to go down. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to show you what is happening between Uganda and the European Union in terms of trade. As you can see, we are enjoying a very good trading relationship with the EU. Exports from the EU to Uganda now amount to 516 million, and these are mostly medicaments. While the exports from Uganda to the EU amount to 473 million euros. And when you compare the two, they are more or less in the same range. But what is important here is that most of the exports from Uganda to the European Union are made of coffee. and other agricultural products. You see coffee, you see fish, and so on. So agricultural products are playing a very important role, and that's an area of opportunity for Estonian business people. It's also interesting that the trend of exports from European Union to Uganda is growing at a rate of 18%, whereas exports from Uganda to the European Union is growing at a rate of 19%. So these are running neck and neck, and this is very good news to people who want to invest in Uganda or do trading in Uganda. Dear friends, I'm showing you some of the rates regarding taxes, and these rates are reasonable and are within the range for the other East African countries. So the rates are within the range of other East African countries. We are not below, we are not above them. So we are within other tax rates. Now, I would like to hand you over to my co-presenter, and that's Amin, who is going to take you through the following slides. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Andrew, for some insightful words, and I'm sure the participants of this webinar really found value in what is happening from a macro level in Uganda. As I open up my slides, I'd just like to briefly introduce myself. As Dr. Andrew mentioned, my name is Amin Ismail, and I'm one of the partners at Stepchange Africa. At Stepchange Africa, I work with our clients on fundraising for various projects on the African continent. In addition to I work with clients to advise on trade opportunities in Africa and out of Africa, as well as advise on business growth strategies for clients that are looking to enter Africa or export out of Africa. If you just bear with me 1 second, I'm having a bit of a technical challenge in terms of my slides. So I will be with you in a second. There we go. Can everyone see the screen on sector opportunities? Super, and thank you for that, Tõnis, for the confirmation. In addition to my background or my work with Stepchange Africa, I am a banker by profession, spent a lot of time in South Africa, working in trade finance as well as in private wealth and structuring debt for individuals and companies that have had business operations across Africa. I have spent a number of years establishing businesses on the African continent, more specifically in East Africa. And these businesses included FMCG and food service distribution, the development of the ingredients business for the bakery, beverage, and meats industries, as well as agriculture trading and distribution, and building up supply chains with smallholder farmers in East Africa. So without further ado, let me dive right into the sector opportunity. At Stepchange Africa, we've identified three areas, or rather three sectors that are of particular interest. The first being ICT, the second being agriculture, and the third being manufacturing. So ICT in Uganda is a very well-regulated industry. It is vibrant, it is growing, and there is tons and tons of innovation, be it in e-health. So companies like Rocket Health have established to do electronic health consultations, pharmacy deliveries, lab services, and so forth. You have Safe Boda, which is really a Ugandan success story, whereby Safe Boda has revolutionized, has Uberized Boda Boda, or motorbike taxi services in Uganda. And with the COVID pandemic, they've managed to further integrate into the Ugandan society, providing delivery services, food distribution, and at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, recently received a grant from the United Nations Development Program to further grow and expand their business. The Innovation Village was established in Uganda as an incubator for new businesses looking to grow in the ICT space. And there's a lot of really good and exciting work that is coming out of the Innovation Village. In terms of opportunities for agriculture, rather for ICT, there's opportunities in the agriculture space. You have companies like, I can name a Korean, who are working with large exporters of agriculture commodities to provide digital marketplaces for smallholder farmers. They provide mapping services whereby they're able to, through GPS technology, map out farms that allow clients to know where the agriculture outputs are coming from. They provide a very strong data set to financial institutions like tier 1 banks, or to the development sector to provide information on the actual flow of funds. Digital payments is a very big innovation in the financial services space in Uganda, and apologies for that. You would see the same in other parts of East Africa. Mobile payments is very common, and it's often the preferred way of transferring money between family and friends, as well as for business services. There's been a lot of innovation also on digital lending, and these are through behavioral scoring through mobile money platforms or otherwise. Excuse me. I briefly spoke about healthcare. Excuse me. I briefly spoke about healthcare and some of the work that Rocket Health is doing, for example, from a disease control point of view, pharmacy tracking, symptom tracking, as well as e-health consultations. From a manufacturing point of view, we were seeing a lot of growth in supply chain management, process flow optimization, and other areas in which to create efficiencies around the manufacturing supply chain. And as I gave the example a few minutes back, the work that Safe Boda has done in terms of their innovation, they've seen a lot of growth and a lot of change during the COVID-19 pandemic. Food delivery, when I moved to Uganda about 8 years ago, didn't exist. Now there are a number of players, whereby you can order anything from groceries to liquor to food to pharmaceutical goods. So I'm pleased to say that there's a lot of innovation, and the Ugandan economy and the Ugandan population is very receptive to new tech ideas. So that's one area that we would recommend the people of Estonia and the businesses of Estonia to really look into. The agriculture sector in Uganda is very dear to my heart. It is an area of national importance, and the president of Uganda has often said that he wants to take Uganda and make Uganda a commercial agriculture player and move from where it currently is as a smallholder agriculture player. So it is very integral to Uganda's future. About 80% of Uganda's arable land is currently being harvested. So it has lots and lots of opportunity for companies to come into Uganda and look at farming on a commercial scale. And these sort of investments are very much well welcomed by the government, and they're really needed to take Uganda to the commercial agriculture phase. The nice thing about Uganda is that it has two distinct seasons. So every crop has two harvests. And that's really good from a trade and export point of view, in that agribusinesses in Uganda are able to offer customers in different parts of the world two shipments, unlike other countries where only one shipment based on the single harvest is possible. So that's quite great about Uganda. Another thing about Uganda, and some of you may know this already, Uganda has always been referred to as the breadbasket of Africa. It has some of the most arable land, so agriculture yields are very high. And they often joke that if you throw a mango seed onto the ground, a mango tree will grow. So oftentimes fertilizers and other agriculture inputs are not needed, and are only used on a case-by-case basis. Agriculture in Uganda contributes about 50% of the total exports, and you would have seen the slides that my colleague Dr. Andrew shared a few minutes back. Some of the biggest exports into the European Union is coffee, and coffee is very much appreciated by the European palate, the Uganda Arabica and Robusta variants. There are a lot of European companies that have a strong and established presence. These are companies like the Ecom Group. Then you have Touton and other Europeans that are present in Uganda. While the agriculture sector in Uganda has a lot of opportunity for growth, like any sector, there are a lot of challenges that need to be overcome, but the opportunities are large. And when I say challenges, I talk about the fact that the majority of the farmers in Uganda are smallholder farmers or family farmers who oftentimes have 1 to 2 acres of land, sometimes less. So it becomes very difficult to go to a single farmer like you would do in Europe or North America and contract for a large quantity. Collection of agriculture outputs requires time, it requires building relationships, and it requires you to appreciate and accept a higher level of risk from inconsistent outputs or lower quality outputs. The opportunities in the agriculture space, like I earlier mentioned, is commercial farming, agriculture inputs, and high quality inputs. Recently, a company came into Uganda offering seed for sesame seed that could be harvested using a combine harvester. Tracts of land were harvested using this particular seed, and the outputs have been quite high, higher yields, which has resulted in an increased number of exports into the Chinese market that consumes over 1 million tons of sesame a year. There are opportunities in terms of agriculture processing and value addition. Development organizations like GIZ are really promoting value addition in the agriculture space in Uganda, especially in value chains that are more common in northern Uganda, such as sesame seed, soybean, shea butter, etc. Exports are the issue of food security and feeding the world is top of mind right now as we move out of the COVID pandemic. And Uganda, because of the high yields and those strong and the large number of agriculture land, it's very well positioned to be a primary exporter, and there's opportunity for Estonian companies and European companies to come in and get involved in that. And processing and value addition, as I mentioned, go hand in hand. The development community in Uganda, the international development community is very strong, and organizations like USAID, DFID, Mercy Corps, and so forth have a lot of support for agribusinesses be it for, agriculture extension services or providing funding for pre-purchases to helping agribusinesses manage their finances and their books, etc. And oftentimes they team up with organizations like Stepchange Africa to provide technical assistance when needed. Manufacturing in Uganda is very small. Uganda, for the longest time, has been very much reliant on imports. However, there is a move by the government of Uganda, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, as well as the other business councils, to develop manufacturing in Uganda under the BUBU scheme, Build Uganda by Uganda. So the manufacturing right now is primarily dominated by international companies. You see companies like Unilever, Coca-Cola, etc., having large and Danone, the French yogurt company, having large manufacturing operations in Uganda. However, there are a number of local success stories, and you would see companies like the Mukwano Group, which is a large conglomerate that is involved in FMCG manufacturing, amongst other businesses. You see large steel manufacturers and plastic manufacturers in Uganda, such as Nice Plastics, that are doing some very good work for the Ugandan economy. The government in Uganda is putting very long and short-term strategies in place to fuel growth in Uganda, and some of these strategies include high import duties to promote local industry. And one example is the import duties on the importation of any dairy products. Dairy products attract either 100 or 120% import duty, which is a prohibitive duty designed at promoting and securing the local dairy sector. And as a result of that, over the past number of years, we've seen a lot of new companies that have come on board. Manufacturing in Uganda, like many other countries across the African continent, face challenges that one would not normally think about in Europe, and this is intermittent power supply. It is something as basic as having a standby generator is often required, just to ensure that there isn't a loss of production or a loss of business. Electricity is very high, and oftentimes that can become a stumbling block or a limiting factor for the development of a particular industry. So my advice would be always just understand these costs that one may take for granted in more developed economies. There is a strong demand right now for imported products. However, any new product that is rolled into the market, be it local or imported, would need to be developed in Uganda, and there needs to be a lot of brand awareness and brand education with the consumer. So don't let that be a stumbling block or a reason for you not to look into the Ugandan markets. There are high levels of poverty in Uganda, and as Dr. Andrew mentioned, that impacts the purchasing power. However, with certain products, especially low-value products, the market is very big, not only in Uganda, but also in the neighboring countries, South Sudan, Eastern Congo, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Kenya. I believe some of the information on this slide we have discussed, but there are a lot of opportunities for either the importation still of European goods into Uganda and the export of African goods, rather Ugandan goods, into the European Union. What's interesting, when you talk about flowers, for example, there's a dedicated freighter that leaves every Tuesday from Uganda into Liège in Europe, with carrying just flowers and frozen fish. Another interesting point is that the the leather that is manufactured by one of the facilities in Uganda is used for Mercedes-Benz cars in Europe. So there is a lot of opportunity that one can tap into and open up a very big market in the EU and beyond. So when we talk about excuse me for a second. When we look at the progress and what's being done in Uganda, there is, according to the World Bank's doing business rankings, Uganda is one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. And the reason for that is that it has one of the largest growing populations, as Dr. Andrew earlier mentioned. It is a youthful population, and it's working towards moving towards middle income status. That provides growth and opportunity for any business looking to enter the country. A challenge would be that it is a poor country. Infrastructure is weak, but it is growing. There's unreliable power issues, and basic utilities aren't often available. Having said that, there are untapped opportunities. It has a very young, ready-to-work workforce. Uganda has a very strong command of the English language, and everybody speaks English. And I can personally vouch for that. And I've traveled into the villages in northern Uganda, and I've been able to freely converse with individuals that oftentimes don't come into the main cities. It has a fast-growing population, and the cost of labor is very cheap in comparison to other markets in Africa as well, and definitely in comparison to the European Union. Some of the challenges that one would face is lack of consistent cash flow. You need to remember that if you're distributing goods into the FMCG sector or into the food service sector, customers would often ask you for long credit periods, 30, 60, 90 days. Oftentimes these credit periods do get extended because of cash flow issues, and that needs to be factored into your costs. You would obviously import in euros, sell in the local currency, and the timing factor between importation and getting paid needs to factor, especially with the currency that can devalue over time. Because the workforce is ready to work, they're growing. The workforce is always looking for new opportunities, and you need to factor in that oftentimes you will have a turnover of staff more often than you would hope or you would want. So keep that in mind, and put incentives in place to retain your staff. Access to capital in Uganda is oftentimes difficult to obtain. And also expensive to obtain. Commercial banks are very, how can I put it, very old school in their thinking, in that they require fixed collateral in order to provide loans. So it's always advisable to ensure that your capital adequate when you look to opening up a business in Uganda. Interest rates are quite high. Borrowing on the US dollar is between 9 to 12%, and on local currency it's about 22 to 23%. So just keep that in mind if you are looking to take out a loan in Uganda. Uganda scores poorly in the Corruption Transparency Index. Uganda is, corruption is very common. There's also, more often than not, you will be asked for a bribe. However, the government in Uganda is trying to put measures in place to limit corruption, and that has been a key point in the president's agenda. There are, security issues. It is not while Uganda is safer than other countries, one needs to keep in mind, especially coming out of the COVID pandemic, that there is an increase in robberies and petty theft, and that needs to be factored into one's consideration. There are a lot of risk reduction methods that you can put into place, and depending on the business that you wish to go into, I would highly recommend that the issue of risk be looked into. Items of value need to be protected. There are lots of security companies, insurance companies that are available in Uganda, and I would recommend that they be interviewed, and adequate insurance cover and protection should be put into place. Admirable culture, it's up to the business owner to create ethics and values within their company. And, I said that corruption is high, but don't assume that every Ugandan is corrupt. With the young workforce, people are hungry to learn and to grow. And oftentimes, and I've found this in my own businesses, that there is a culture of adopting best practice. So that's something that I would always recommend. And as I mentioned when I spoke about items of value, keep the right security personnel on your premises, so that your premises and your goods are well secured. There are a lot of unique opportunities in Uganda. Makerere University, as my colleague Dr. Andrew can vouch for, is one of the top 20 universities in Africa, and that provides Estonian businesses with access to very good talent. Uganda has a very young population, and it's the youngest population in Africa. So there's a big talent pool that you can tap into, and really have a young, vibrant, energetic workforce. There are opportunities to transform careers and build livelihoods, and this speaks to the previous 2 points. There is a growing trend, especially coming out of the post-pandemic, to set up home offices, and a lot of multinationals and startups are moving in that direction, and companies like Deloitte, PwC, and SafeBoda are examples of this. It's good to know, and it's a chicken or the egg story, that attrition rates are high. So the young talent, while they're willing to grow and to learn, are oftentimes lured away by higher salaries. So, like I mentioned earlier, it's good to put incentives in place so that you can retain top talent. And one company that has done an excellent job is the Cafe Java's restaurant chain that started in Uganda and now has grown across the region. They have a lot of incentives in place to retain their staff, and and oftentimes you see staff loyal and willing to grow with the organization. And they do this through in-house training programs, etc. Establish your relationships, and that takes time to do. So don't think that, and when I say establish relationships, it's very important to know that a lot of face time needs to be put in with your service providers as well as your customers. So build that relationship, make your customers your friends, your family, and therefore will build that loyalty over the years. In Uganda, don't take a short-term view, because in order to be successful in Uganda, you need to take a medium to long-term view. Some of this information I've already covered, but labor costs are very affordable, some of the most affordable in Africa. There's a young startup scene, and that's through the Innovation Village, the MasterCard Foundation, Kane, etc. Return on investment is projected is at 5% at the moment, but is expected to grow to 7% due to planned infrastructural growth such as new roads, railway, and energy stations. Uganda is strategically located to trade within the East African community, which has a population of over 170 million, and COMESA, which has a population of over 500 million. So keep that in mind. Uganda is the breadbasket of Africa. It is a pearl of Africa, and therefore it has access to a large percentage of the African continent. Now, talking about doing business in Africa, and I'll speak about my own experience. Like I mentioned earlier, I had moved to Uganda about 8 years ago, and set up two businesses. My first business was at the request of international FMCG and food service distribution brands, such as Coca-Cola, Unilever, McCain, and so forth, to develop a multi-temperature distribution facility headquartered of Uganda, and trading these goods into Uganda, South Sudan, and Eastern Congo, as well as Kenya. The business started off by working with the supermarket chains, and one of the the product that we wanted to bring into the country was needed by the markets. One of the mistakes that I made earlier on is that I didn't understand the cash-to-cash cycles of the Ugandan economy. And like I mentioned, there is a high reliance on credit. So payment terms that were negotiated at 75 days from invoice ended up turning into 90, 120 days, which resulted in us having to factor in a high cost of capital. The currency obviously devalued over the same period, which depleted into profit margins. So I always recommend to new businesses and new individuals that are looking to enter that space in Uganda, while there is a lot of opportunity, make sure that you understand the cash-to-cash cycle in great detail, and negotiate your payment terms with your customers to a point that works for both yourself and them. The business in the formal sector has grown over the number of years, and that is a result of new supermarkets that have come in that weren't around 8 to 10 years ago. And these new entrants are the ShopRite Group out of South Africa, and more recently the Carrefour Group, the large French supermarket chain. In addition to these global giants, there are a lot of smaller or large local Ugandan supermarkets, such as Capital Shoppers, such as Mega Standard, etc. The opportunity to get into the ingredient space is quite large. There is a demand for new and innovative products, and I would always say that for Estonian companies as well as European companies, look to the ingredient space as an opportunity to provide a solution that can innovate new products, be it in new yogurts or beverages, or ways of developing better quality bread, for example. In about 4 years ago, I moved into the agriculture space. Agriculture, the reason for that space was because it was it presented a very good opportunity, and Uganda was able to satisfy a lot of the food demand from different parts of the world, especially the sesame seed demand from China. Now, while the various crops are grown in Uganda, and while there is a lot of demand for Ugandan crops, like I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we need to be very mindful of the fact that Uganda is a small agriculture player. And, as you begin your trading activities in the agriculture space, you you may not always get the quality outputs that you would require. So keep in mind that you would want to, rather would need to put in training programs in place to work with these farmers so that they're able to, over time, not over one season, maybe not over 2 seasons, but over a period of time, develop, rather grow the outputs that you would want, so that you're able to satisfy the demands and the requirements of your customers, be it in Estonia, the European Union, or beyond. So there are lots of opportunities. There's the sectors are growing rapidly in Uganda. The markets are growing. The consumer is growing. The consumer is becoming more savvy. The Ugandan population, now travels. Affordable flights come into the continent with the and people can travel into the UAE. The Uganda Airlines has recently launched and is taking Ugandans across the world. So the Ugandan consumer is becoming a lot more savvy, and is now wanting better quality, newer, more exciting products. So what I did in my business, while I had the FMCG and food service business, as well as I moved into the agriculture space, I wasn't able to become complacent. And my advice is, don't become complacent, continuously grow, and keep your ear as low to the ground as possible, so that you always maintain your competitive advantage. I'm now going to pass over to the floor to Tracy. Tracy is from ENS Africa, Africa's leading law firm, and she's going to be talking about the regulatory insights in Uganda and share some more information around that. So Tracy, over to you.
Thank you, Amin. Like Amin has said, I'm Tracy Kakonji. I'm an associate with ENS Africa Advocates, which is part of ENS Africa, the largest law firm on the continent. We have offices in 6 African countries and a presence in the rest of Africa. So as part of the corporate and commercial team, we provide investor assurance to clients with setting up in Uganda, acquisition and disposal of assets, and we ensure that your businesses and transactions are compliant and enforceable in Uganda. So Uganda's legal system is mainly based on statute with a common law influence. So most of the laws in Uganda are drafted based on common law and other English laws. So I will briefly speak about the business vehicles that you can use to set up in Uganda. The 2 most popular are limited liability companies and registration of a foreign company in Uganda, which is a branch office or a representative office, as most of you may refer to it. So with regard to setting up a limited liability company, the Uganda companies registry will require a minimum of 2 shareholders. You could set up a single member company, but we do not encourage corporate entities to set up single member companies, because in practice, the law was drafted for individuals to set up single member companies. So we'll usually encourage you to have a corporate entity with a majority shareholding and 1 nominal shareholder. There are no minimum share capital requirements for incorporation, except where you are in a sector that requires you to have a minimum capital requirement, which is like the financial institutions, insurance companies, gaming, betting and lottery companies, and more recently, payment systems. We recently had a Payment Systems Act that was passed into law and now requires companies that are involved in that space to have a minimum capital requirement, depending on their size and the number of transactions that they have. So in practice, the minimum capital requirement will be 1 million shillings, which is the equivalent of about $300. There's a minimum requirement for 1 director. There's no requirement to have local directors while you're incorporating the company. And then a question we commonly get is whether there are shelf companies in Uganda. We do not have shelf companies in Uganda, and you'd have to incorporate the subsidiary or limited liability company from the start. So the time frame for incorporation of this entity is 5 to 7 days from the date of submission of the incorporation documents that are required, and the official statutory costs are between $150 to $200. Then the other common entity is registration of a foreign entity in Uganda. This is where your company is incorporated in a foreign country, and then you can register it in Uganda as a representative office. So the filing registration requirements are quite minimal. You'll be required to register your company incorporation documents in Uganda, and it will cost between $415 to $500. Then as part of setting up in Uganda, you will be required to have these general authorizations in place, which include a tax registration with the Uganda Revenue Authority. The Uganda Revenue Authority has recently required directors of corporate entities setting up to also be registered with the URA. So even if you're a foreign director without a presence in Uganda, or a director who does not reside in Uganda, you will be required to register for a tax identification number in Uganda if you're to trade in Uganda. Then you'll also be required to apply for a trading license, and there's no cost involved with tax registration. Then for a trading license, it depends on where your offices, your physical presence is located in Uganda, and then the price varies, and it can be between $100 to about $300, depending on the location of your office. This is an annual license. Then you'll also be required to register with the Social Security Authority in Uganda, which is the National Social Security Fund, if you have more than 5 employees. And so the employer will be required to contribute 10% of the employee's salary to the Social Security Fund, and the employee contributes 5% to this. This also does not attract any fees for registration. And then the other requirement is an investment license, where an entity has majority foreign shareholding. It will be required to apply for an investment license with the Uganda Investment Authority. The application process is also quite simple. It can be done online, and it does not attract fees. Then if you wish to have expatriate staff in Uganda, you will be required to apply for work permits for this staff. And the work permit application process is between 21 to 30 days. It can be done while the employee is here or away. And the fees will vary from $1,250 to $2,500, which is the fee payable per year for work permit per year. These fees have been recently revised. And they have been reduced from the previous fees that were quite high. Then there are also certain industry-specific licenses that you will need to apply for. I will focus here on ICT. ICT, from a legal perspective, is not strictly regulated in Uganda, except if you're involved in the communications sector, which is regulated by the Uganda Communications Commission. But other than that, if you're a provider of IT services in Uganda, you're required to apply for certification from the National Information Technology Authority of Uganda. But this certification will only apply if you have a presence in Uganda. If you're providing your ICT services from outside the country without servers in Uganda, you will not be required to apply for this license. Another important aspect of ICT regulation is data privacy registration, where you are a data controller, data processor, or a data collector. You'll be required to register with the National Information Technology Authority of Uganda as well. This is a very recent requirement. The regulations for this were just passed in March last month. Yeah, then for manufacturing and agriculture, for manufacturing, I'll start with manufacturing. The most common regulation in this space from a legal perspective is regulation from the Standards Bureau. It's called the Uganda National Bureau of Standards. If you're in the manufacturing sector, your products will need to be verified for quality assurance with the UNBS. Then for manufacturing, you'll also have to consider environmental permits and licenses in respect to your waste management, noise pollution, and generally obtain a certificate of environmental wellness in case you are in the manufacturing sector and you're going to affect the environment in any way. So if you're also like certain industries, specific sectors in manufacturing will also be regulated in addition to this UNBS regulation and environmental regulation, like the drugs sector. If you are manufacturing drugs and other products related to drugs, you'll be required to obtain a license from the National Drug Authority in Uganda. Then there are other licenses and permits that will be required if you're undertaking any building and construction in the country from the planning authorities. From an agricultural perspective, this is also not very heavily regulated. What I would like to add to this is that where non-citizen, a company with ownership of 51% of foreign shareholders will be considered a foreign company for purposes of owning land in Uganda. And you can only own land through a leasehold tenure for a maximum of 99 years. So that's an important consideration for agriculture. And the leasehold tenure usually comes with an agreement where you will have specific conditions for use of the property. And these are usually, if you're in the agricultural sector, you will be required to use the property just for agriculture and something along those lines. And then another important point to note is that there are generally no foreign exchange control restrictions in Uganda. It's quite a free economy. And as I said about land acquisition, foreigners will need to own land by leasehold tenure for a maximum of 99 years. So that's it from a regulatory perspective. We'll now move on to the Q&A session, and I'll hand over to Tõnis for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have two questions. One is about exporting software services to Uganda. And someone wants to know what kind of taxes should be considered under this kind of trade. Tracy, any answer for that question?
Thank you, Dr. Andrew. In response to that question, I will say that if you are exporting services in Uganda but do not have a physical presence, you will be charged a withholding tax of, the rate is currently at 15%, and the obligation will be on the person receiving those services. The obligation to remit the tax will be on the person receiving those services and not the foreign entity. I don't know.
Thank you very much. That's the right answer. So you as an exporter, you will not pay, but the one importing will have to pay taxes. The second question is from Haradi has got about 3 questions. Is wondering, is trying to find about what is happening in the mining sector of Uganda. The mining sector. What are the opportunities in the mining sector? And I would request Amin to say something about the opportunities in the mining sector.
Dr. Andrew, thank you for that. The mining sector in Uganda is relatively small in comparison to other parts of the continent, and it is underdeveloped. So, based on that, and based on the mineral wealth that Uganda has, there is a lot of opportunities, and I think it will be very important for one to just to do some research into the sector and try to align the minerals and and oil and so forth to their own business operations and try to match the opportunity. So that's what I can say on that.
So the sector is a bit limited now, but what's coming up is oil. There is oil which is coming up. I don't know whether they still need some consulting services. This is something which one would like to find out if you can provide some consulting services on this new project for oil. Otherwise, the other minerals are very small in quantities. So the consulting services one could provide possibly go to the oil industry. Now that covers number 2. Question number 3 is about payment. One is wondering, how are payments made? Do clients pay in time or they take time to pay? I think, you said something about it, possibly you could repeat it. What is the payment regime in Uganda? Do people pay promptly or they delay in payment?
So I think, like with any country, you have good paymasters and bad paymasters. In Uganda, the concept of credit is very prevalent. Oftentimes, customers would ask for credit, especially in the FMCG and the retail trade. But this also goes into other industries and sectors, and also payment terms are often asked for professional services, and Tracy can attest to that. That being said, you do have, and I can vouch firsthand for it, you have customers that will try to extend the payment terms beyond the agreed credit period. And if that's the case, you would just need to factor that into your business model. But you do have others that are prompt payers and will pay on delivery or offer prepayments. So it really depends. And I think before you engage with the customer, ensure that you've done your due diligence and you understand their payment habits. And that can be requested through referrals from other customers, or rather other suppliers. One other thing to note is that there are insurance companies such as the Africa Trade Insurance that can offer payment insurance. So they'll do they'll run a credit check on your customers and advise if you can offer them credit periods. And they'll give you an insurance policy that will protect you against default. So that's something to keep in mind when offering credit to customers. Thank you, Dr. Andrew.
Thank you very much. Dear friends, we are running out of time. I'm wondering whether we can be able to answer the other question. Tõnis?
Yeah, I think we have time for one more question.
For one more question. Now, the question we have here is, what is the current coverage and the network quality in terms of cellular networks 3G and 4G, especially outside the capital. I mean, do you have enough on this about the network?
Uganda has a very strong MNO sector and has very good coverage across the country. There are large international operators that provide cell phone service to Uganda, and the largest being MTN, originally from South Africa, but you know, the giants in telecoms. You have Airtel out of India. You have Africell, and these are the three large players that provide cellular data, both 3 and 4G. So, you know, unless you're in a bad spot deep inside a village, 9 out of 10 times you'll have both 2G and 3G service at minimum. So I don't think that's an area to worry about.
Yes. Thank you very much, Andrew. Amin, let us move to the next item. Next steps. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to take you through what you need to do in order to succeed doing business in Uganda. There are basically 4 steps here. And the first step is to listen. How and where do you listen? By attending a webinar like this one. So when you come, you listen and you pick what presenters are saying, and that can make you decide what to do. So I'm encouraging you to attend a second webinar, which will take place on 15th April. And that will be, no, 29th. Today, the webinar is for Uganda, and then on 29th, it will be for Kenya, and then 13th May will be for Tanzania at the same time. Please register and attend these very important events. And that's the first step. I also encourage you to go to the second step, research. After listening, please do your own research. And how do you do research? By reading materials that we provide to you. We're going to provide you with links. Please read more. Read about investment in Uganda through Uganda Investment Authority. We are going to give you a link. Read about taxes through Uganda Revenue Authority, and so on and so forth. So please do your research after identifying a key sector that you want to go into. Number 3, please reach out. Reach out to companies like Stepchange Africa that can help you. Please reach out to Enterprise Estonia. They can help you to see what to do. And we have so many other focal points. These could be regulatory authorities. These could be our ENS, Africa, Tracy. That's a very good focal point in terms of regulations. And we're going to give you these lists. Last but not least, please visit, pay visit. Visit Uganda. Next time we visit Kenya, the other time we visit Tanzania. So we encourage you always to visit so that you can see potential investments and start building partnerships. We at Stepchange Africa will be able to assist you in organizing your business trip to Uganda or any other country in East Africa. Uganda is very accessible. There are flights from Uganda to Belgium. There are flights from Uganda to Amsterdam, Netherlands, and there are also flights through the Qatar, Turkey, and so on. So we are well connected, and we have regular flights. So please feel free to arrange such visits. And remember the following events on 29th and 13th May. Next. We would like to let you know that there are a number of contacts that can help you to penetrate markets in Uganda. These include Stepchange Africa, and as I've indicated, we are there to provide services in knowing, in letting you know what you should invest in, and also helping you to do some due diligence. You need some due diligence that we can do. We have on the side of regulations, you can talk to ENS Africa, you can talk to other regulators, you can talk to banks like ABSA if you want to open up a bank. ABSA is there. You can talk to Uganda Revenue Authority, and this has got a lot of information about investments in Africa, in Uganda. You can also talk with Uganda Revenue Authority when it comes to taxes. So please feel free to visit these key contacts and you will get assistance. Next. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of our event, this webinar for Uganda. And once again, we are very, very grateful to you for participating in this very important webinar. And remember, we at Stepchange Africa, we are at your service to provide you with services like fundraising, like technical service in the form of corporate governance, finance, logistics, and so on. Also to help you in terms of interim management, where we can become the CEO, the COO, and so on. We can also help you in exports and imports. And remember, our key sectors are 8. We are in digital tech, agriculture, we are manufacturing, health, logistics, tourism, education, and green tech. So all these are areas where you can get assistance. Next. We have a number of slides that we are not going to go through, but please take time to go through them during your free time. These slides are about the EU businesses in Uganda. We have also slides about other sectors, other opportunities in Uganda. We've talked about ICT, we've talked about manufacturing and agriculture, but that's not all. That's not all. We have other opportunities which you are going to discover in the slides that we're going to send to you. For example, tourism is there, some mining opportunities, and so on. Please get time to go through those slides. At this juncture, I would like to thank Enterprise Estonia and all the participants, and we look forward to working with you. May I call upon Tõnis to say a word as we close this very important webinar. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Andrew. And thank you, Eamon, and thank you, Tracy. It was very interesting. Our time is up, but we will have another webinar coming up in 2 weeks. So I would also like to thank all the participants, and I hope that we will see all of you there in 2 weeks, and then we focus on Kenya. So thank you very much, everyone, and see you soon.